So good morning, everybody. So thanks, Steve, Earl, for this kind invitation. It's a pleasure for me to come to see what you're doing in the States. I'm going to bring you our activities of the European Commission, which is, for those of you who don't know what the European Commission is, the kind of federal government of Europe, although with much less money and power. But we try our best to coordinate at European level our initiatives. So I would like to start with what is Europe doing in HPC, this statement that was heard in BDEC March 2017, Europeans, you talk a lot, but do little. So if the person is here, I would like to talk to the person in private at the break, partly because I agree partly with that, okay? It's because the situation we have in Europe is different. You have grown here in the States with a neighbor on the left, a neighbor on the right, and you have this kind of problems, you know. And Europe, we have this kind of situation. You have neighbors all over the place, you know, and sometimes you go to the office and then you see that the 28 member states, they have different policies, and we have to coordinate all this, you know. So sometimes, you know, you have to talk. So that's why, you know, is what we talk a lot, and because we have 27 member states to coordinate. So let's go to the serious business. So 1 year ago I came here and I presented what we were doing, and it's interesting because we started with this political movement in 2015, in which our president was very eager in HPC. He learned about that. He said, okay, we want to be in the top, and, you know, so high in the political agenda. And it was so high in the political agenda that we got mixed in a lot of high-level policy, and I said, well, maybe we're dying of success because there's a lot of digital single market strategy, the European Cloud Initiative, European data infrastructure, and HPC somewhere there, you know. So we were just kind of swimming in this political environment. That was 1 year ago. I want to just to remember this digital single market strategy because this is one of the flagships of the European Commission. They want Europe to be more digital, to digitize European industry, and this is one of the flagships, and this is really something that they are pushing in the political agenda. So let's keep that in mind. So 1 year ago, we were just in the middle of this ocean of the cloud, etc. And since last year, there has been a lot of movement. At political level, member states, they realize, okay, HPC is something that we want to invest on. And so they gather in Rome and they sign a declaration saying, yes, we're going to build a pan-European infrastructure, the next generation of computing and data infrastructure called EuroHPC, and we want to do it together. We don't have the money to do it ourselves. And this was the starting point, and our vice president said, okay, yes, this is very interesting, we are fully with you. And in the revision of this digital single market strategy, which is the flagship, they pinpoint HPC. They said, well, this is very interesting. So we want to collaborate with member states, and we're going to have a legal framework so European member states, European countries, with the Commission can have a single procurement framework and to build this integrated pan-European exascale supercomputing and data infrastructure. This is where unusual, because normally, you know, this digital single market, these high-level policies, they talk about very general things. This was very concrete, and this was very, you know, an example that we're back as HPC strategy, singled out, and we're not, you know, lost in some kind of general policy. So this is very good. So just to remind you that in our strategy, we want to build a full HPC ecosystem. Okay, we want to have the hardware, the software, the applications, skill service, and tech connections, etc. And basically, we structure in three major areas, which is the infrastructure. Okay, so the capability to acquire the systems and to put it for the use of the science and industrial communities. So this is what we have been discussing with our American friends for many years, is that securing our own independent HPC system supply. So we want to develop our own European technology as well. And last is just to have or to keep our competitiveness, in applications, because Europe is still strong in HPC applications. So we want to prepare our applications for the next generation and to have it very widely used by industry, and especially in particular SMEs. Okay, so this is kind of the strategy, and this is normally the presentation that I use, or the slide that I use with the structure. So in these 4 years, so in the European programs, we have been funding research and innovation actions. And what we have invested is more or less 332 million in research and innovation actions. More or less 190 million euros in technology building blocks and integration and co-design. Small amount for applications and HPC use, and a bit more in infrastructures, which is, the buying equipment and especially PRACE. I will talk about that. But we have also been able to fund part of the Human Brain Project HPC system. We are participating in that. So we're expanding our business in other areas. So we are counting also on the member states' investments. I haven't put any figures here. Why? Because the member states, as Earl was saying, now there's a very flat period. The last splash was, I think, in 2012, right? We have 4 systems in the top 10 of the top 500. Now we have the Swiss, but the Swiss is not the European Union. But now the investments are flat. So we're expecting a lot of investments coming by the end of this year in 2018, just to renew the systems that were very high in 2012. So for the moment, that's the situation today. Now, what happened recently? So PRACE 2 agreement. Why I talk about PRACE 2? PRACE is the European HPC infrastructure. Okay, member states, they buy their computers, and part of these computers, the top computers, they put it at the European service. So they federate it, and any European researcher can submit proposals to say, okay, I want to have a piece of this machine to run my codes. And he has been active for since 2010, and it's really our flagship. I mean, it is our equivalent to the US labs infrastructure. But it's very loose. It is a confederation rather than a federation. Okay? The interesting thing, okay, they have provided more than 14 billion core hours since 2010. The interesting thing is they have signed a new agreement. And this new agreement, they say, okay, we will continue doing what we're doing. We'll have the peer review process, blah, blah, but we will have a high-level support team. So there is another layer of software specialists that will upgrade the applications, the research and industry applications. They will upgrade it to be up to date with the new machines, the new architectures that are coming. So this is very interesting. So that we are funding partly this team of software engineers to do some R&D and code refactoring for the tier 0, so it's the top systems. And of course, we have dissemination, industry collaboration. But it is good because until 2020, member states, they have agreed, okay, to support this European infrastructure, which is good. This is just for the record. The interesting thing in PRACE 2 is that we have the Swiss. Before, we didn't have the Swiss. We were only European Union. Now we have the top European system, which is the PITSDINT in Switzerland, which is number 3 currently. And it has given a lot of computing hours to the Europeans. So this is good. So this is what our infrastructure looks like in Europe, the top infrastructure. Many of these systems will be upgraded, especially Curie, the France, which is only 1.7 petaflops. There's expected there will be a new system, a new Bull system next year, for instance. So the European system will be upgraded in the next few years. Massively, I hope. That's what they're promising. Now, what we're doing as European Union, we keep on funding the research and innovation in HPC. And there were discussions. HPC was one of the areas in which there was no cut, no budget cut. In fact, it was the contrary, because it was beyond our expectations. So our money goes to technology development, co-design and integration, applications and infrastructure development, and widening of use. This is more or less what I have shown is these three major areas. But recently, we got more money for this from this program, which is the Connecting Europe facility. This was a program that was intended for the public administration to connect and exchange data. Now they're interested in using HPC for HPDA, for data analytics, for better decision making, and they're intending to give us some money so to expand the HPC activities for public administration, for public interest applications. Okay, so this is excuse me, the logic of investment. So we're putting money on the technology development and integration, and we're putting money on the infrastructure acquisition and providing more services. The idea is, as it was, well, last year I explained that the idea is to have 2 pre-exascale and 2 exascale systems of European use. I mean, it doesn't mean that in Europe we will have only 2 pre-exascale and only 2 exascale, but these will be the systems that will be available at European level. It will be the kind of European machines if you want. So this is the intention. So by 2020, start a procurement, and by 2022 and 2023 to have the exascale machines, European exascale machines procured. That is our intention. So we are pumping money there to make this HPC Cloud BDA ecosystem develop. And this is our intention. Now, in more detail, where we are putting our money in 2019-2020. So first is to have the basic technologies, the basic technology for exascale being developed, and have the co-design prototypes, and integrating all this technology in prototypes and demonstrators. On the more industrial program, we have a very strong program that was approved last year to spend 120 million on the low power processor design and development. This was not yet decided last year, so I hinted last year that we could do that. The new budget was approved for this line. And we have the co-design of extreme scale demonstrators, so they're going to be installed in the big supercomputing centers to have it co-designed with the vendors and with the users, and also 50 million for HPC large-scale testbed, which is more for industrial use. So we'll ask industry to come with ideas for these testbeds to show the value of HPC in those areas. And we have the program on infrastructure, so it's PRACE 2, so investing in infrastructure, centers of excellence. Also the PPI pre-exascale system, this is the money probably that we will put for buying these 2 pre-exascale. This is only 20% maximum. Of 80 million is only 20% of the actual value of the machines. So that is, for the moment, it will be in 2020, 2019. So that's what we are expecting. And from the new program, we're expecting, this is more uncertain because these work programs are approved on a yearly basis, but we expect that in 2018 we'll have 15 more million, and in 2020 we'll have 100 million more for HPC. So this is where the good news. Okay, so this is, the structure of the work programs for the next few years. It looks pretty good. And if we extrapolate or we count on all this money, we expect to have almost, more than 1 billion euro invested in HPC for the whole 7 years program, with 560 million for technologies, 300 million for infrastructure, and almost 200 million for applications and widening of use, which is I think is very good. And we expect also member states to massively invest in infrastructures, technology, and testbeds. Okay, so this is draft. We're discussing it, but it's pretty, pretty certain. Now, Euro HPC, as I said, the member states, they go together and say, yeah, we signed this declaration. Now the European Commission say, okay, we're going to establish a new legal instrument. Okay, you agree, you're very willing to cooperate. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, and let's build this this instrument. Yeah. So this instrument was at the beginning intended to be just a framework to procure, but now you say, well, why don't we do it everything? Everything in this instrument. Why don't we just gather the research and innovation program, the procurement, the instruments to widen the use under the same umbrella? So this is what we are discussing now. We expect. I'll tell you when we expect to set this up. But the intention now is to say, well, let's not be limited to the infrastructure and the procurement. Let's do the integration of the research and innovation, so we can link the research and innovation with the procurement, as you do in the States, as they do in Japan, as they do in China. We don't need to, split these programs or these activities, because it's much better when you do it jointly and under the same umbrella. Okay, so this is it's being discussed now, because we talk a lot, but we need to talk a lot. So our intention is that this HPC will take over this legal instrument, this new structure, from 2019 probably, and they will take over all these activities, or most of them. Okay, so where are we now, and what are the next steps? So we are the work program that I mentioned before, all these investments we're discussing with member states is almost finished. We expect the approval in September. So we expect all these budgets to be approved in September. So we don't expect any major issue. Now, what about next? So because this is for the exascale machines, etc., you need a lot of, much more money in the order of billions, especially if you want to integrate the research and innovation. This is what we call the multi-annual financial framework for the post-Horizon 2020. Now, there's still a lot of uncertainties, especially, for instance, with the Brexit. We don't know what's going to happen. But HPC has been singled out as one of the priorities that we want to fund. So far I cannot say more, but HPC, I think, is going to be one of the priorities in this MFF. Now, we are preparing a HPC, so we are preparing this implementation roadmap. So we have to define the funding resources, the financial instruments, what is the procurement process in 2019, 2020 for the pre-exascale, and in 2022, 2023 for the exascale. We want to say, okay, what are going to be the activities for the development of technology that is going to be taking place in HPC, and also we will also, as I said, put in under the same umbrella test beds for scientific, public administration, and industrial application. This is very interesting for member states, so we say, yeah, HPC could do that as well. So by the end of this year, we hope to have the roadmap of implementation for this legal instrument, and then there's the legal process of setting this up that will take more or less 1 year. This is the speed of light for administration. 1 year is like, wow, mind-blowing. But we expect to have it very quickly. Now, I'm summarizing, this is the end of my presentation. So this is really, HPC is back in the political agenda, singled out for the European Commission. We have a clear roadmap, so we know where we want to go. We have the coordinated actions from different programs, which is also very interesting to have these new work programs cooperating with us or coming to us to invest. We cover the full HPC ecosystem, which is also one of our intentions, not to separate the research and innovation from the procurement, from the industrial use, etc. As I say, this new legal dedicated instrument will implement the strategy. This is good news because there will be only one umbrella for that. And we expect, and we are sure, because this legal instrument will be done will integrate the member states' effort as well. So is the first time we hope that in HPC we will have all these member states funding and resources collaborating with us. And finally, I hope to say maybe next year that Europeans, you talk very little but do a lot. So I hope to be able to say that maybe in the next year, maybe in 2 years' time. Okay, thank you for your attention. Is there any question? Yeah.
talk about technology development. Who's going to make those chips for you?
Okay. Talking about the low power processor and the components, because it's not only the processor, it's the components. We have opened a call and it will be closed in September. Okay, in September we will know which is the consortium that will take this up. I cannot say which one, because we have been talking with many vendors. They were coming to us, and discuss with us what are the possibilities, because I didn't go much into detail, but this processor effort is a very complicated one. You need a lot of collaboration. I mean, you need a lead vendor, but you need also a lot of collaboration. And so we know that these consortia are being created, are being discussed. So we don't know yet who's going to be the winner. So we'll have the evaluation in October. So we'll receive the proposals in September. And the beauty of this is that this is a long-term engagement. So this 120 million will be implemented by this consortium only. In the past, we used to have single calls, and then in the next 2 years, we have another call, an open call, and somebody else can take it. This 120 million will be implemented by this consortium, this winning consortium, only one, composed of many participants. But yeah, so far I cannot say, but yeah, there are a few interested parties.
A while ago, the DOE asked us to do an evaluation, kind of post-mortem of the ASCII program, and it generally got praised, but one of the criticisms, especially by the participating vendors, is that the premise was a little faulty because the government assumed that it would not provide so much funding to the vendors because the government was helping them to create their next generation of products. But the vendors said that the government's requirements were so specific that in many cases they only could sell one copy of the machine to the government and no one else.
Yeah.
So is that an issue that you discussed?
Yeah. This is from the very beginning. From the very beginning, when we talk about developing European technology, and this started in 2010. These discussions. We have always said that we cannot have one-of-a-kind computer or technology. This technology should be used and should be marketable and should be profitable for the European. And this is very difficult because then the vendors say, what is what you want? And we say, so yes, this has been an issue. And again, we are not putting that much pressure, I think, as the DOE, in the sense that our specs are less defined at this point. But our discussion with the vendor was that this cannot be just a single machine, just one off the shelf, and that's it. It has to be the first of a kind rather than one in a kind. That's it.
Yeah, just to dig deeper into these two questions. So, are you guys expecting this chip technology to be kept in European Union, used only by European Union, or is it something that you want first use and then it becomes a global technology available?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, we don't want this technology to be used only in the European Union. What we want is that the knowledge, especially the IP, is kept in the Union, and then, as you say, the first use could be in the Union. It comes with the exploitation obligations. What it has happened in the past is that IP that was produced in the European programs immediately, once the foreground information, the foreground IP was produced in a project, was immediately transferred to a third country, US, Japan, China, Singapore, Korea, whatever. And then we would end up buying those machines or those systems with the IP that we have produced in our systems. So now all these programs now that I presented, all they will have what we call the Article 30.3, which says that the Commission can object to any transfer of IP to a third country. It just simply says that, you know. And we consider that this is strategic technology. So most likely we will object. But, okay, this is an article, and I'm not a lawyer, but this is what we say. And we hope that the first exploitation will be in Europe. And one of the goals is to have at least one of the exascale machines with European technology, what we call European technology, what means that, okay, the knowledge and the know-how has been produced in Europe. And there are many US vendors and many Chinese vendors also working in Europe. So, yeah.
So you're assuming that it could be any vendor around the world, but he stays in Europe, and maybe European Union will get royalties beyond the.
Yeah, but that's a commercial strategy. But what we want is just this IP somehow be exploited first. Yeah, that would be a good first step. Yeah, good question.
So your plans are very impressive, and I like the idea of building the infrastructure for the instrument that you mentioned with the multiple deliveries of systems. But I'm wondering if you have a definition of what an exascale system means, or what will define success for the systems that you listed as exascale. What performance, what other types of characteristics will define them as being successful exascale machines or productive exascale machines?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question, because exascale is a selling, you see, it's a selling word for getting money. Now, what we're following what DOE is saying, right? I mean, DOE was changing from the exaflops and at some point to the exascale performance, and now they look very closely at what the applications will be doing, how they will be performing. So, if anything, I mean, we have not defined what we want for these exascale systems, and because we will probably be a bit later than China and the US, and maybe Japan in procuring these systems. So we have a little bit more time to do that. Now, if you ask me, because if I was the one to decide on that, I would go for the exascale performance. Okay, so I will look at our applications, what are our key areas, and that's why we have centers of excellence in HPC. These guys, we are funding them to upgrade and to recode and refactor the applications. So I will ask them, okay, what is what you want? Because this is where we are building our competitiveness, in the applications. So there will be probably in around 2019 when the Euro HPC will be established, in which we will have to define what is what we want on exascale. And again, that's my personal opinion. We will be more on the exascale performance. And it will be also a lot of talking, European talking, so it will be PRACE, and there will be all the supercomputing centers, the centers of excellence, and we'll define that. But it's not going to be a race for exaflop. I don't expect that.
One more quick, real small
Yeah.
question is, with the legal framework, it allows the European Commission to collaborate more with the member states. Does it also allow the member states to collaborate more with each other?
Yeah, that's what we expect, is that they can pool money. Yeah? So there will be a legal framework which say, I don't know, Spain and Italy, instead of buying, these pretty good machines, they want to buy, a big machine, I mean, we know that Germany can afford, 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 exascale machines in the long run. France probably will do that, probably the UK, but maybe some other member states, the smaller member states, they want to pull money and get some also European funding to get a big machine. We don't know, but this legal framework will allow first to put European money for European infrastructure with member states, because we don't expect a fully 100% funded European Commission machine. This is not what we want. We don't have the facilities. The facilities are in member states, so it's much better for us just to cooperate with them, or the pooling of smaller member states. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So, I mean, Britain's still in the European Union. Are they contributing money to this effort right now, or are they not contributing?
Yeah, the UK is participating in PRACE, but PRACE is a completely is not depending on the European Union, so they will continue probably in PRACE. So the researchers will be able to use them. Now, for the funding of the programs, that's what the question mark comes. It depends on what kind of Brexit we have, because we could have also the UK as associate member state, associate member, in which they will contribute as well to the research and innovation program, which things will not change significantly. But we don't know yet. And that's really a question mark. Yeah.